Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the re-sculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
Me, but also you. The Pharaoh fast forwards his favorite foreign film, Powder Donut. Okay, what's my line?
The only line I see here on the script is get options based on your budget with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive.
Oh man, that's a tongue twister, huh? I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a few more minutes. Bulbous Walrus, the Bulbous Walrus.
The Name Your Price tool, only from Progressive.
The owl ran afoul of the comatose coxswain.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And welcome, everybody, to the Lunacy Podcast, brought to you by Roughneck Scarves. My name is Tony. I'm here with Dave and Connor. Dave Stevens, Connor Ennis. I am Tony Pervenanzi. Today, boys, is Sunday, and it's a nice, it's actually kind of hot out there. You guys been outside today?
Yeah, it's 90 degrees.
Yeah,
I just got back in from being outside, actually, about a half hour ago. Yeah, I was, and I'd gone out in the morning. But obviously it had warmed up and windy and hot. Wow, it's an odd one. But hey, I'll take it for the kind of as we push towards the end of September.
Yeah, probably the last hot day of the year, I'd say. I got a feeling this will be it.
Yeah, I think so too.
So big weekend this weekend, guys. Me and Dave went to the game last night. We're going to talk about that game a little bit later. Connor, you were not there.
I wasn't.
You were at was it a wedding? Yeah,
I was at a friend's wedding where my wife was actually the maid of honor. So
there you go.
We were there, but I got to see the first half on TV and some of the second half too. So that was kind of cool.
Good deal. Yeah. It was a nice, Dave and I were there, and it was a good crowd. And we're going to talk about, there was some controversy before the game even happened with the supporters group. So we're going to talk about that a little bit because Dave and I did end up going to Dual Citizen before the game and saw some of the old T&E guys that we know and had a little conversation with some of those guys. Other than that, we had, I sent you guys a picture. We had Otsego's Prairie Fest here yesterday, guys. And it's a one-day festival here in Otsego. It's kind of nice. It's not your usual typical fair stuff or whatever. They just have a couple booths here and there and food and a beer garden. And normally at this beer garden, guys, it's just Coors Light. I mean, that is what they have. This year I went up there and they had Coors Light. They had White Claw, of course, because all the women are drinking the White Claws now.
Right.
Then they had a mystery bin, mystery craft beer bin. And so for your ticket, you go up there and they give you a mystery beer out of the hopper. And I was talking to the guy there, and he said that I guess one of the guys who's in the Lions in our area, he is what was he, a brewery? He's a canning guy or something like that. So he ends up with all these extra craft beers for the canning lines that they use. So he brought all these craft beers out there. And then they had Prize, which I was amazed that Prize beer was served at the Otsego Lions Fest or the Otsego Prairie Fest. So, yeah, it was a good time. They had food trucks out there, lobster rolls for $26.
Wow, from where?
Yeah,
it's some lobster food truck. Nice time. My daughter played soccer beforehand at that park, and so there's a lot of soccer players there, and then afterwards, and it's a good time. So, but I guess after that, then Dave and I ended up going out of the game. But it was a great day. just a fantastic Saturday that I had yesterday. We are drinking today, guys, even though it is Sunday. Dave, do you have something new? I mean, you haven't been this now. This is Dave's first time on the podcast, actually from his house in almost
over 2 months.
Over 2 months.
It'd be over 2 months now. So I was telling you guys before we started, it's actually great to be sitting here at home, and not sitting in a hotel room 7,000 miles away. Even though I was grateful to have the opportunity to jump on with you guys for at least a majority of the pods that I was gone, but it is awesome. It is amazing to be back. I'm still in a bit of a fog due to the jet lag. I'm still a little bit tired. Tony saw that last night, but that might have had something to do with the beer might have had something more to do with the beer than the jet lag last night. But no, I'm just clear. I've been home for 3-4 days. And so I'm starting to get better every day. And so, it's great.
There you go.
I do have a beer. I do have a Minnesota beer for the first time in 2 months.
Yeah.
Oh, and geez. Yeah, that's right. That didn't even cross my mind. I wasn't even drinking during the China podcast because it was in the early morning for me. Right. And even if I didn't have to go into the plant, it was still the whole having a beer at 6 a.m. didn't really do it for me. So I am not going with a new beer. I am going with one of my favorites, though. One of my favorite breweries and one of my favorite beers from that brewery. I ended up going with Contains Bees from Inbound. And so it's certainly a beer. I believe I'll probably even sample it on this pod, but if because I've had several beers from Inbound on the pod, but if I haven't had this one specifically on the pod, I've certainly talked about it and I've certainly had it before, but it is one of my favorites that Inbound offers. It's kind of on their, I guess you'd call it seasonal rotation. I feel like it's available most of the year, at least in liquor stores, but I was just reading up on it a little bit just to see if I could get any insight. And apparently it's not available all the time, but it's definitely in their rotation as far as seasonally. Available early spring through, I would assume, now the fall. Obviously, I just picked it up yesterday, but it is a great. It's just a blonde ale, but I don't know with it's got actual real Minnesota honey in it and it also has that creamy like peanut butter taste to it. So it is a flavor overload. It's really if you're looking for a beer that tastes delicious, it's not a classic blonde ale, but boy, it's got a good taste to it if you like honey and peanut butter. And it comes in at 5.2%, so it's not going to knock you out. It's just really refreshing, really smooth, and it has a lot of flavor.
Well, that's 2 weeks in a row now we have Inbound on the podcast because last week I had Inbound, you got Inbound this week. So, well, cool, man. Connor, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking a new brewery again, guys.
Ooh, nice.
Dave, I will say though, I was looking in my fridge to see what beers to bring on the podcast today, and Inbound was actually the one I was one of the ones I was looking at. I ended up not going with them this time, but I'm going with the Young American Pale Ale, and it's from Bald Man Brewing Company.
Bald Man.
Yep, down in Eagan, Minnesota. So if you ever going south on 77, just south of the Mall of America, you'll go across the river and then you'll look onto the just past the bridge at 13. You'll look to the left and you can actually see it from the highway over there.
Nice.
It's a really nice tap room. As I said before, I opened the beer and I haven't had the beer that long because it must something must have happened to it because it exploded when I opened it. But it's very, very good. It's kind of, it's a little bit light for a pale ale, I would say. It's definitely got the kind of hoppy malty taste to it. It is. See, I tried finding. Oh, there it is. It's only 5.1, so it's fairly easy drinking. It's just it's kind of right up the pale ale alley there. There's nothing really unique about it, but it's tasty. Here's how they describe it here. They say bready malt foundation combined with a fresh Minnesota grown hops creates a crisp and classic American pale ale. All night you will want to drink Young American. So it's very, very good. and it has a picture of an eagle on the front there. So
there you
it's,
go. Of course.
Young American.
Nice.
Yeah.
I went with a brew we've had on the podcast before. I had Bauhaus. I went with their Rind Flare, and it is a watermelon ghost. I will say this: of all the Bauhauses I've had, this one is probably not up there in terms of my favorites. I'm not a big watermelon guy to begin with, especially when it comes to beers. And this one just doesn't hit the right way for me. But it's only 5%, and the IBUs are 6. So the thing has absolutely no hops in it whatsoever. It's kind of like drinking a hard seltzer. I mean, that's what I'm tasting out of it. But it's all right for Bauhaus. I don't have problems with their beers. I'll still drink it.
Yeah, Bauhaus is a good staple over there in St. Paul. Yeah.
So yeah. So
you had Bauhaus just a couple weeks ago, I think, too.
I did. I bought this 12-pack, this variety pack from them. So I'm trying to clean out through those and get them out of my fridge so I can put new stuff in there.
Nice.
Unfortunately, I don't have much space in my fridge anymore out in the garage because it's full of sparkling or what do you call it? Hard seltzers and that.
Hard seltzers.
Oh yeah, because that's what everything. That's my wife, my mother-in-law, and my sister-in-law. They all drink those now. So
yeah, my wife's a big fan of those too.
Yeah.
So your wife has kind of moved over to the hard seltzers, like your sister-in-law and your mother-in-law.
Yeah, they all moved over to the hard seltzers. I mean, when we go out to Boondocks every once in a while, my mother-in-law will still have a Coors Light there sometimes.
Because I thought Kelly was the same way, as far as drinking Coors Light over hard seltzer. But yeah, it's winning a lot of people over. Yeah, I saw some great spots. Speaking of hard seltzer, like that, of course. I think there's a like pumpkin spice.
Oh yeah,
Bud Light hard seltzer.
Oh yeah,
which is just it's hilarious. So, it's a sign of the times where as we get here close to Halloween and in the fall, but it's just unbelievable.
Gross.
Yeah, it sounds horrible.
No. So we got some games to talk about, guys. 2 big games from this week. Wednesday's game against SKC and last night's game against the Galaxy. Before we get into those games, though, we should mention that the team did re-sign Chase Gasper for 4 years, I believe. I think it was 4 years, wasn't it, guys?
That number sounds correct. Yeah, I don't have the details in front of me, but yeah, it was a longer term contract. So
of course they didn't say how much it was, or at least I didn't see it. But a lot of people on social media were not happy with that. They think that there should be an upgrade. I personally think Chase is fine back there. I have no issues with. He's kind of grown a little bit more this year than the past couple of years. He's done a little bit. I think he's been a little more sturdy and steady in that back. Of course, his crossing is still shit, but
and he can't shoot from distance.
But
hey, he didn't earn that contract based off his crossing ability. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah. Good point, Dave.
And other. I mean, what we talked a little bit about this last night too, Tony. But yeah, I think that it's all about, I think, roster construction in the MLS. And the thing is, it is essential here for a team, at least right now as we speak in the MLS, to have a roster that has a base of MLS veterans on that team. And yes, of course, you can. You got 7 international spots. You got 3 DP spots where you can really spend up. And I don't know. To me, you look across the league and where are the DP spots typically reserved for? I mean, a majority of them are your, attacking players, your attacking midfielders,
right?
And maybe your box-to-box midfielders and your strikers. I mean, that's where you spend the money. But I look at, the fact is it's an important signing because you need players like Chase Gasper. He's already a veteran. He's been here for 2-3 years now.
Yep.
And what I like about him, he's basically an Iron Man. I know he missed a game or 2 earlier this season here in 2021, but he's been out there basically since he was a rookie, and he's played almost every single game. and he's been very tough and durable. And obviously looking at the rash of injuries that this club has had recently, that's even more important now. So I think it's just important. You can't make splashes at all 11 spots on your roster. You need to have these kind of guys. And I'm just saying all this, assuming that they didn't have to break the bank to sign him to a 4-year contract.
No,
if you know what I mean.
No,
I'm sure they didn't. So. I'm sure it was not that expensive to get him signed. The key though is, guys, their back line is getting older by the minute. I mean, with the exception of Chase Gasper, all the rest of them are over 30.
Yep.
And they just signed Boxell to a 2-year contract. And I get it. They want to have some stability back there. But Boxell's not getting any younger. DeBassi's not getting any younger. Metnier is not getting any younger.
Right.
You need to get younger guys back there. And so they can fill in for these guys when they start getting up there in age and have those injuries and things. So
I think that's a really good point, Tony. And I think one of the things that this team has done is they went out and drafted a lot of defensive players, even in the most recent MLS Super Draft. So that's one way to address that problem. But I think a lot of people, and what you're talking about, if there were people disappointing by the signing, is I think people do want to go see a splash, say, on that back line. And I think, with players like Metnier, I mean, maybe Minnesota has gotten lucky going the international route. They've had success doing that, finding players like Boxell and Metnier and, everybody else that's filled in at spots. So I think it's okay. It's not a splash to re-sign Chase Gasper, but it's still important. So it'll be interesting to see because these players that they drafted recently, most of their picks were defensive players, but they're not going to be here in this season. No. Will they be, will they make an appearance next season? Time will tell. But yeah, you're right. They got to do something sooner rather than later. And I think they're obviously hoping that those younger players will develop soon.
Definitely. Let's talk, guys, about the SKC match. Even though we don't want to, we have to get into it a little bit. We knew that going into this game, we knew that Robin Lod and Ray could potentially be back for this game. Okay.
Right.
Well, the lineups come out and Robin Lod's available, but he's on the bench, and Ray is not. Ray's nowhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So before I even get in the starting lineup here, guys, you look at our bench for the SKC game, and it's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys, and 2 of those guys are goalies. So we had 4 position players available on our bench for a huge midweek match against SKC. And I don't know if we even mentioned this. Was it this week or was it last week that the director of sports science was let go? Was that last week?
It was this week.
This week, yeah. So they let the director of sports science go. And there's a little bit of a conspiracy going around that maybe he was let go because all these guys were getting injured during training. He was let go the same day, I think, that Hassani Dotson wound up on the injury list, I believe, because Hassani was not available for the SKC game. So I don't know if you can blame injuries on the director of sports science. I don't know what he's involved in or anything like that. But obviously there's some training issues with this team this year.
Right.
I mean, huge training.
Unreal. Like what is going on out there? What are they doing? But, I understand, an injury can happen, anywhere. It could you could happen walking down the stairs in your own house, in the shower, wherever. But like it's just crazy the amount of training injuries that this team has gone through in this short of span. Really, it's been in the middle part of the season, and it's so incredibly frustrating. And as far as what a health science or trainer could do, I mean, that's not something I have expertise on, so I won't go into it. But I mean, I'll just speculate and say, well, I mean, maybe there's. I mean, it just sounds silly. I don't know, pre-training stretching or whatever their routine is. Who knows? I'm not even going to get into it. But yeah, it is incredibly frustrating, and it just makes you wonder what the hell's going on out there. It's crazy.
Well, so the injuries again come back to haunt us in the game against SKC because we end up with a not a great starting lineup. We get Adi up front. We get Fragapane, Anu, and Finley in the attacking mids. we get Will Trapp, and then Ja'Cory Hayes is our other midfielder because I think, Dotson was out with an injury, and was Ozzy, was he on accumulation or was he out with an injury too? I don't even remember.
I think Ozzy was on accumulation.
And Gasper was accumulation. That's right.
Yeah.
So Gasper and Ozzy were on accumulation, so they were both out. So in Gasper's place, we had DJ Taylor starting, and then of course our normal back line. So we go in SKC not at full power again, full strength. And guys, I mean, if anybody watched the game, which I watched the first half and then shut it off because I was so disgusted, you could see that
the second half.
Well, you could see that we couldn't do shit.
We were never in the game.
We're never in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was frankly, it was a goat rodeo. I think we had a chance or two in the first 5 or 6 minutes. And then all of a sudden it was SKC said, well, we're just going to take this game over. And they did.
Yep.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I mean, when it was this past Wednesday night as we record now here on Sunday evening, but I was actually literally traveling home that evening. And by the time I got settled in and was able to turn it on, they were already down 4-0 and it was into the second half. But I mean, knowing that game on Wednesday in SKC, I mean, you're looking at back after Seattle, you're back to back, hostile, not only hostile places to play, tough places to play. You're talking about two, the cream of the crop in the West, basically at this point, the best teams in the West, back to back Seattle and SKC. I guess the only thing I was thinking was, wow, it sucked. The result sucked in Seattle losing, but they lost 1-0 there. Yeah. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe this team has a chance, even though, then you got the yellow card accumulations with Gasper and Ozzy. That just makes things worse. Plus the injuries you already mentioned. And so, but even knowing that, I thought, okay, well, you know what, stranger things have happened. They went down there to, it's still Children's Mercy Park. They went down
Children's
there
Mercy Park,
year. They went down there last year in the playoffs as an underdog and got a result. So I wasn't throwing in the towel before the match started, but boy, it didn't take long.
It was brutal. Adrian Anu tried again to score a goal, and he kept missing every place. I mean, he could not sniff the goal on those shots.
Gosh, if you want to talk about positives, was that it? That at least Minnesota had some early opportunities, and it's a very cliche. I think we can use, the cliche of goals change games. I think we could say that about the LA Galaxy game as well. But that could be a positive that Anu actually had some quality chances, but again, it's been a curse of this team all year long.
Yeah, you could look at it as a positive, but it's a very small positive out of that game, because if you lose a game 4-0, you're not really looking at a lot of other things. No. But I mean, you love to see Anu getting stuck in, but it paled in comparison to the rest of the game. I can safely say in my opinion, I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that Anu was getting a few chances, but it's just in his first. I mean, I like you, Tony. I shut off the game after the first half because I was just so why would I watch this game anymore? Yeah, they'd have to pull off a miracle to come back. I mean, I would have liked to see a miracle, but
you weren't even. But Connor, you mean even in the first half, you knew there wasn't going to be a miracle because just the way the guys were playing.
Oh yeah,
again, the
they were sloppy.
Midfield was disjointed because it was Will Trapp and
Ja'Cory
Hayes in the middle. So again, Will Trapp has got a new partner, and we know how that works. Will Trapp is at his best with Hassani Dotson with him.
Right. Well, let alone the fact that you have Adrian Anu in the number 10 position as well. Mm-hmm. When does that ever happen? That has never happened with at least our team. I know when he was playing in France, he played in the number 10 position a couple times, but he's always been strongest as that poacher striker. Yep. And then you put Fernando Adi in the striker, which, I mean, Adi, that is his natural position, so I'll give it that. Yep. But when you have Robin Lod on the bench, why not put him in the number 10 position?
Yeah. Well, and I think that Heath wanted to kind of gradually bring Robin Lod back. So I kind of get why he didn't start him, but when you're missing this many guys, Just start him up top,
Yeah, I mean, because it doesn't make sense to bring him back in the middle of the second half.
Because when we're down. Yeah.
When we're down 4-0, there's no point for that.
No.
And I think one of the only reasons that we brought him in was because our bench was so low.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I mean, in fact, literally, if you looked at the log of subs, the only subs we didn't use was the goalkeepers.
Yeah. Well,
and so it's just there was no point to it at all. It was that I think.
Well, it's to get his legs under him, maybe. I mean, he's been, Lud was out, for a number of games. At least you get a few minutes under your belt, get some game experience and flow. I don't think he was. I mean, you're right. I mean, if he needed to make the sub, he needed to make the sub. Maybe he preferred not to make the sub just because there's nobody else. But at least he gets into that game, gets a little flow, and maybe setting up, his next start potentially.
I mean, there's not much more to talk about here, guys.
No,
a loss is a loss is a loss. It wasn't even a good loss. It was a bad loss.
No.
We dropped out of the playoff picture after that loss. After this loss on social media the next day, the Heath out crowd was in full force. There was a lot of Adrian Heath doesn't want to run this team. He's a terrible manager because he's got no bench. What's going on with the injuries? What's this? And he just doesn't know how to do things. And I understand where people are coming from with Adrian Heath. Well, I will say, and I think I on a text with you guys earlier this week, I will say this: Adrian Heath needs to make the playoffs this year, and he needs to at least get a victory or two in the playoffs this year.
Yeah,
he gets that. He gets another year. He doesn't make the playoffs this year. He's done. There's no way they're bringing him back after all the talent he's got on this team, and he's the one who brought this talent in. You can't keep this guy around if you can't get his talent to win games for him.
Yeah, I agree. And I would even go as far as to say if we do make the playoffs and lose in the first round, even then we could probably get rid of Adrian Heath because when you are if you look back at what the expectations were coming into the season, we were one of the favorites to go to the MLS Cup. And when you're barely making it above the playoff line as it is, I think just making the playoffs isn't enough for Adrian Heath. He needs a win in the playoffs in order to keep his job for another year, at least. Especially
if they sneak in on the last day. I mean,
if
they sneak in because other teams lost on the last day. I don't know why you keep him around. It's frustrating. Now, Heath
at least. I was going to say, I mean, at least we, when you talk about Heath out, obviously this podcast in general has not been Heath out up until this point, but I mean, I totally agree with you guys. I'm not going to repeat it, but yeah, I think we have to have that conversation regardless of whether they make a run in the playoffs or not. I mean, I think if they win, if they make the playoffs and don't win, I mean, at least we're having the conversation. I mean, it has to be had, I think, at this point.
I will say this though. I am completely against getting rid of Heath before the season ends.
Yeah,
I think he needs to be given the rest of the season at the very least.
Oh yeah.
But then we have the conversation because I know there have been some coach even today actually. If FC Dallas got rid of Luchi Gonzalez. Yeah. And when you get rid of a coach in the mid-season, it's just going to spell disaster for the rest of the season, no matter which way you look at it. So you might as well let the coach who's been working with your team for the past however many years, I think this is his 5th year in charge, just give him a chance to prove himself and prove that he can be the coach that everybody wants.
Yep. That's it. I mean, that's right. I agree with you, Connor. I don't believe in firing coaches or managers mid-season. Unless a team is absolutely a dumpster fire. I just think it's better off to go through the rest of the season and then in the off season, get a new guy in to kind of do all the things they need to do.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm not saying this happens, but let's say, I'm definitely not saying this happens, but let's say Minnesota drops, say, their next 2 games.
Yeah.
Which would include, of course, we're not counting the LA Galaxy game, which we'll get into in a minute, but let's say they lose their next match at home against Houston, and then they lose their next game after that, the pitchforks would be out. But that doesn't mean, there's 10 games to play, even if they say lost their next 2 matches, that still doesn't mean they couldn't make the playoffs by going on a late run, getting a few wins in a row. And so, but by firing the coach, firing Heath at that point, you just, it might not look bright. The future might not look bright, but it's not going to help. It's not going to help the in-season.
Makes
situation.
no sense.
Yeah.
So get out of that game. Everybody's down because lost to Seattle, lost to SKC. We talked about this being the most important 3 games of the season so far. Yep. And now we've dropped 2 of those games without even getting a point. I mean, that's bad, right?
No goals scored.
No goals scored. I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah. And
so we go into last night's match against the Galaxy, and I think a lot of us were kind of, is this the end? I mean, this is where the ship, just starts sinking. I mean, it going down like Titanic here. This is what's going to happen. And even before the game, Connor, Dave and I were on the light rail train to the match, and there was a little kid with a Loons shirt on with his mom. And I said, "Hey, little guy, who's going to win the game tonight?" And he goes, "What did he say?" Dave was like, "I don't know." And then
when you asked him the question, he was very clear. He said he thought about it for maybe a second and a half and said, "I don't know."
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? That's a great answer, because that's exactly how I was feeling. But it was funny. I think you followed up, with another question, like, "Are you sure?" Like, because he was clearly a Minnesota United fan. His mom was a fan. Yeah. But you followed up with basically the same question, and then he kind of changed his mind and said, "No, I don't think so."
Yeah, he said no
to the same question.
Loons aren't going to win. No.
Oh, wow.
And so
he changed his mind.
Everybody starts laughing on there. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, but it was classic. It was classic because, I mean, like you kind of alluded to, Tony. I mean, I think a lot of people were feeling that way. But I mean, that's why. I mean, you said it. Tony and I, we went to the game, and I was excited to go for a lot of reasons. Number one, I hadn't been to, because of travel and other things, I hadn't been to a Loons game since the opener. Mm-hmm. And that was a much different environment with the 44,000 fans or whatever it was. And but another huge reason I was excited to is because this is technically, I hate using the term, but because it wasn't. But the term is a must-win game. I mean, technically it's not, because they still make the playoffs and not win it. But
mathematically, it's not.
Game
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It felt like a must-win game after Seattle and Sporting Kansas City. It really did. I mean, especially coming home after 2 really negative results for the club. And so, yeah, it really had the feeling of a must-win, because if they didn't win, or if they, even a draw, you're not feeling great, but a loss, it just, I don't know. You'd be falling into a pit of despair as a fan, I should say. But it wasn't. I mean, so I just wanted to go. It had that buzz. It had that must-win feel to it.
But it was. I mean, it kind of was a must-win game, and not from standings wise or points wise, but from a fan standpoint and
from a morale perspective. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. From morale, you're right, Connor. From morale perspective, you need to win this game. So we get in this game, guys, and guess what? Robin Lood's in the starting lineup. Ray's in the starting lineup. It's amazing. Chase Gasper's back. Alonso's back. Look at our starting front 4 up top. We have Robin Lood. Oh, look, he's playing the forward position. It's a false 9 type of deal.
Wow.
And so we start Finley, Ray, and Fragapane out there. So my question, and Dave and I question is, where was Adrian Anu? He was on the bench.
Well, and that was and we talked about the lineup once we saw it. I mean, I was just assuming that, I was just crossing my fingers that Reynoso was going to be in the starting lineup, which he was. That was awesome. Glad to see it. Robin Lood, we expected it, and he was. That was great. And I was just kind of the letdown for me. I don't know if it was the same for you, Tony, but the letdown for me was that Anu wasn't up top. And that was, and I would have liked to have seen Robin Lood outright. And of course, Fragapane, who's been back now for a couple games, out left. I that's the lineup I wanted to see, but I wasn't, don't get me wrong, I wasn't disappointed. I still thought it was a strong lineup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say
Robin Lood had success, playing in that 9 position. So.
Exactly. Yeah. And because, you're right, Dave. There's many worse things that could have happened with that lineup, hence the SKC game. But You've got we've seen what happens when Robin Lod plays that false nine position, and good things happen. We've talked about it many times in this podcast. And then, of course, you have the Fragapane, Reynoso, Finlay team, which again, a lot worse things can happen. I mean, Robin Lod is clearly good where Ethan Finlay was playing that night, but I mean, yeah, a lot worse things can happen. Like I was very happy with the way they started it. I had just felt for Anu a little bit, but you know, that's I was happy with it. I didn't think there was any problem with it at all. The only problem, I guess the only problem with it would be that you were looking forward to those four being able to play together. And again, it wasn't happening. So some chemistry was being missed out on at that point.
And I look at it like any sport, it doesn't matter, but I look at it, you know, the omission of Anu as kind of one of those things where, like, if you're talking about a wide receiver in a football team that, you know, has a couple drops, you want to get him out there as soon as possible. And that we just talked about it, Anu, if there's one bright spot from Kansas City, albeit a small one, it's the fact that, you know, he did have some opportunities. Unfortunately, you know, he missed them and hit the post and won, and hence the no shots on target against SKC. But I just kind of feel like, God, is he so close? You know, that you just get him out there and the floodgates open, like, you know, the game going back a couple games ago where he scored, you know, a couple goals that, you know, were kind of easy, you know, easier said than done, but easy goals. But I just feel like I hope that's not a setback for Anu, because this team might need him down the stretch here.
And he might have been out because he's played a lot with all these injuries you've had. And he's not really we've seen it. He's not a 90-minute guy. I mean, so maybe I
don't think we've ever seen him play 90 minutes.
No. And maybe he's a little burned out, you know. I mean, he's played a lot with all his injuries going on. So he's had to do a lot more. Without Ray, without Lod, without Fragapane for a while. I mean, he's had to do a lot more. So maybe this is Heath's way of going, okay, you need to take a little bit of a break. We've got enough guys now. You're on the bench. If we need you, we'll call you. And we really didn't need him yesterday because, frankly, we were on fire from the get-go. Guys, Ray came back with, like, I don't know what. Like, the guy looked amazing yesterday.
Well, and I mean, the fact is, Tony, I mean, we've said it since game one of this season. We knew how important Reynoso was to this club, and it didn't take long into this 2021 campaign to know that Robin Lod was extremely important to this team. And so when you have had their absences for so long, and then all of a sudden, you know, in last night's game that you get them both back, I mean, the excitement was palatable. You could just sense it. And boy, it didn't take long for those two to
we haven't even really sat down in our seats yet, Dave. I mean, we had sat down, but we just started getting into the game, and all of a sudden, like, guys, 4 minutes in, Ray with the shot from outside the box, assisted by Robin Lod. Those two guys hook up. It was a great shot.
And let's not forget, like, I think I predicted the first goal by Reynoso a few minutes earlier. I think it was seconds into the game. There was a free Reynoso had a free kick opportunity for just outside the box. He ended up hitting the wall. Didn't go the way I predicted it at the time, but I was predicting a very early goal from Reynoso. Not to be disappointed, he scored just a few minutes later, and I don't know if that's the play that the goal that I almost knocked you down in our seats.
No, that was number two.
Next. I think it was the next one, but I was just as excited because it was Robin Lod with the assist to Reynoso, and credit Finlay. I think Finlay got the ball out wide right to start that, got it back into Lod with some nice hold-up play, and then just gets it to the man, Reynoso, who just in that particular goal, I think he it felt like a knuckleball, but he got it. There was no way Klingsman had a chance on that one. He got it, you know, just on the far post out wide right, and just beautiful, just classic.
Yeah. Of course, you know, being at the game, Connor, Dave and I can't see everything that they see on TV.
Right.
So we can't do like what Sterling does when he watches on TV. He can see all these little things going on here and there, like this guy's playing bad or this guy's, shouldn't be here or whatever. But from where I was sitting when we were sitting yesterday, this whole team came out of the gates like they had something to prove. The play that I saw from them on the pitch was like, hey, we got to win this game in front of our home crowd. We got to get them, pumped up. And they did, like right off the bat. As soon as Reynoso hit that first goal, the crowd was in it for the rest of the game.
Definitely.
Am I right, Dave? I mean, the crowd was in the rest of the game, and we were involved in this match. So that first goal, Reynoso,
the Wonder Wall was as organized as I would normally expect it. But
should we before we get to the next goal,
we're going to touch on that later.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it now. Okay. Before we get to the next goal, I should have talked about it before the game, and I don't know, Connor, if you saw this I'm sure you saw this on Twitter. What had happened?
You talked about about it just before the show, right? Mentioned it. No, I did not see it actually.
So what had happened was Minnesota United came out with a statement. I think it was Friday, saying, "Hey, we strongly recommend you guys wear masks when you're back at Allianz Field, and if you're going inside anywhere, you have to wear a mask." And that's that. A lot of the fans have been calling for them to have an actual vaccine or negative test mandate to get into Allianz Field, like a bunch of other MLS teams have done.
Well, now slow down, because to be fair, let's put it on the record. It's not there's 5 MLS clubs that require a vaccine, that require proof of vaccination or a negative test, and 3 of those are in Canada, where that is not a club decision, that is a government decision.
Sure.
And in addition to that, at least for baseball, I believe it's across the board, professional sports or any gathering, they have limited capacities still.
Yeah.
Like for Toronto Blue Jays, for example, they're in the playoff stretch, at least, they're in the playoffs as of today, but their crowd at the Rogers Center, which is a 40,000 seat stadium, they are limited to 15,000 fans at that stadium, not by the club, but by the government. So, to be fair, I think there's only 2 clubs in the United States. It's Vancouver and Seattle that actually enforce those types of rules.
But
it's not like everybody else is doing this other than Minnesota United.
But there's other teams.
I want to make that very clear.
But there's other teams that are doing it, Dave, and that's the point.
2 other teams.
I think that's the point that these supporters are saying is, let's be safe, let's do this.
Right.
And
I agree. That's what they're saying, but it's really technically only 2 other MLS franchises that are enforcing a vaccine mandate. So to expect Minnesota United to do something like that at this point, I'm not saying that's going to change, but I think I think people are, at least the reaction you see on Twitter is surprise and shock, but it shouldn't be. because it's not the norm. Well, it's not like every other club is doing that.
But it doesn't matter, Dave. It doesn't matter if it's not the norm, but it's a, and I'm not going to say it's a right or wrong thing to do, but from the supporters groups, it's the right thing to do for this team and for the fans at that game. I mean, that's how they feel. I think a lot of fans, especially in soccer, feel the same way, that this should be happening, right?
Yeah, and I just saw some pushback, and I had to point this out. I mean, the fact is, those supporters are still in the stands. They're sitting, and I don't want to. I'm kind of quoting something I saw, but I mean, there's 19,000 other people in that stadium.
Yep.
A lot of those people took light rail transportation. I mean, they're doing. It's not like this is a decision you're making to go to this game.
Well, yeah, let's talk about what they did. So the supporters groups decided.
So it's like people are just getting irate. I'm sorry, people are getting irate that they're not having a vaccine mandate, but they're still going to the game. Like, if you don't want to go to the game, don't go.
That's what I'm saying, Dave, is that the supporters groups were mad about it, but all they did really to protest it was have no capos and no Thunderwall. Okay, that's all they did. And you're right, Dave. There was some people on Twitter who were saying, "Hey, if you really want to protest this match, then don't go to the game. All you guys in the supporter sections, watch it somewhere else, outside, or watch it wherever. and don't go to the game. Leave that section empty.
That was essentially my point. And Tony, I think even before you and I stepped into that stadium, we were talking at Dual Citizen Brewing Company. I mean, just like, if you want to make a statement, do something else, because that wasn't it. Because to the average fan, yeah, I understand it's a kind of a big deal for those in the Wonderwall. It's a big deal. I get it. But for the average fan that's sitting in that stadium, they might not even have known the difference.
No,
quite frankly,
for the average,
people are still chanting and singing and cheering. And you honestly might not have known the difference, especially after, in this case, the 4th minute goal. And like you said, Tony, great point. From that point on, the place was loud,
and there was still chanting going on. We were still chanting. So there were no songs. I don't think there were no songs though.
No,
there were no songs being sung.
And I honestly, I noticed that. I missed that, of course, to hear some of those songs and chants that you're very familiar with after attending many games. But so, I mean, I noticed it. I just feel like, the average fan might not have noticed a difference unless you were looking for it.
No. So they did the whole kind of protest that way, which, whatever they want to do, that's them. I don't belong to supporters groups. I know people in the supporters groups. We can disagree about stuff about it, but it is what it is. And the funny thing is, and I think Blackheart, Dave and I went to Blackheart afterwards, Connor, and they require you to show proof of vaccination there.
Is that right?
Yeah, on Fridays and Saturday nights, you got to show proof of vaccination.
Okay.
So what Blackheart has done is kind of said, okay, well, if the stadium's not going to require it, we're going to require it here. Especially after a game on a Saturday or whatever, we're going to require it here. And how hard was it, Dave, to get in there with our proof of vaccination? It was very easy.
It was not hard.
Yeah,
it was not hard at all.
Show them the app.
They make it very easy. In fact, they said, I mean, we had the apps, but I mean, they also make it easy to say if you have a picture of your vaccine card or whatever. Yeah. So that, I'm not saying, I'm really, this is a tough one for me, but I mean, because I can only speculate. I know this is a business, and I know Minnesota. I don't know, but I can assume that Minnesota United is not making a decision like that based on a fear of lost revenue.
Well,
but they can make it easy, especially. I mean, I'm a little like, from someone who travels a lot, I'm a little leery of like, okay, you can get you need a negative COVID test to get on a flight. I needed a negative COVID test to get back in the United States, and that's fine. And I took my test, and even though I was vaccinated, I took my test, but I'm still leery about that, because it's like, well, I took my test, within, I think in my case, it was 48 hours, but the requirement is 72 hours. And it's like, if I took my test 48 hours, then I could technically contract COVID in the 47th hour.
Potentially, yes.
So there's no good answer, and let's not spend too much time on this, but you know what I'm saying? You're right. You guys are right. Allianz Field could make that statement, and it would not be a hassle much for people. No, I don't know, but I don't know how many people wouldn't go to games because of that. I just don't know the answer to that. So there's no point.
It'd be a minority. LA, just before we get out of here, the Las Vegas Raiders required in their stadium.
Right.
And do they still have a sellout? They probably.
Of course
did.
they do. Of course they do.
Of course.
Yeah, okay.
It's the NFL.
So there you go. Okay. So if people want to go to the game, they're going to go to the game.
Yeah, that's right.
Totally.
So let's get back into the game. We got the first goal from Reynoso.
That was a long tangent.
Good to go.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys.
Sorry about that. We got the first goal from Reynoso, and then what is it, 15 minutes later, Dave? He fucking scores another one. The guy was on fire outside the box, top right corner, assisted by Fragapane. That's the one where Dave almost pushed me over on top of people because he was so excited about his score. So I think it was because it was Reynoso again. It's an exclamation point on his importance to this club, and just seeing him score again it put me over the top. I was so excited to see it. I honestly didn't even see the assist from Fragapane as we were watching it live, but boy, did I see his shot, because again, we were sitting as we described this, we were right along the end line on that goal for those first two goals by Reynoso. So we had a great view of both of them, and it was I was just
so excited knowing that he had his brace. And the first thing I thought about, and probably as I'm trying to tackle you to the ground, Tony, I probably said, are we going to see it? Is he going to get a hat trick after that brace?
That's right. You said that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, we're going to see a hat trick. We're going to see a hat trick. This is
that would have been amazing.
No, I thought about the hat trick, but I was just happy. I just happy you got the brace. I was just happy like right away. And guys, really getting those 2 goals in the first 20 minutes really set the tone for us of the game, because at that point, I think the team kind of locked into a more of a, I wouldn't say defensive approach, but a more like a, we don't need to score another goal if we don't want to. We can do some passing. We can have some good possession. We can kind of play our game now, and we have to worry about, trying to catch up or trying to score goals.
Yeah.
And
which is great because I like how you said they weren't playing defensive, Tony, because it really wasn't that way. They weren't trying to protect their lead at all. They were more just playing the game of soccer and playing a good game of soccer. Yeah. It was a complete switch from the Sporting KC game. Yep. And it was amazing to see that kind of chemistry back on the field, mainly due to Ray and Lud being back in the lineup. But it was just they looked to their motivation. So something must have happened. I don't know what I don't know what happened, but something must have happened to get their motivation up on the field, because they looked like they couldn't do anything wrong that day.
Well, what motivates you more, Connor? I mean, 2 losses in a row. Come on.
Yeah, Connor, that's perfect. You're right. It did feel like Minnesota could do nothing wrong, and I feel kind of like the game opened up certainly, and not surprisingly after a 2. Once you get up to 2 goals, it definitely opens up the game. That's why they say it's the most dangerous lead in soccer, because it does open up the team. The other team has to has to take chances, and certainly, I mean, LA Galaxy did that. I mean, they had their chances too. I mean, it was almost like watching LA Galaxy reminded me of Minnesota, because LA Galaxy had their chances in this game. There's no doubt about it.
They did,
but they just couldn't. They could not finish themselves. And so we had seen that from Minnesota plenty. So LA Galaxy could have scored, but didn't.
One of the big reasons for that, Dave, was because Chicharito did not start this game. He came off the bench in the second half. I think if Chicharito had been in this game to begin with, I think we would have seen a different game from the Galaxy than we did.
I agree.
You could tell that offensively they just weren't clicking on all cylinders, and Chicharito can come in and just take a game over. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. But I think that's what happens whenever LA Galaxy comes to town, is because most people don't think of Minnesota as a powerhouse in soccer. Yep. And I think the LA Galaxy are some of those people, which is why they don't start people like Chicharito. And I think, Ibrahimovic started his games for LA Galaxy whenever they came here.
Oh, don't talk about that.
Well, not at TCF Bank.
No.
Well, do you guys remember Ibrahimovic with the turf and kicking up the big chunks of sod in front of goal?
Am I wrong about that? Am I wrong? Did Ibrahimovic, start at TCF Bank Stadium?
Yeah, he did start that one. Okay. He scored the first goal that day. And Ibra started. I know that when it happens with a lot of teams, actually. I remember when Orlando came to town a few years ago, Kaká wasn't with them. And it's just been a lot of just a lot of, they don't bring a lot of their big stars or start a lot of their big stars because they don't think of Minnesota as a powerhouse in soccer, and they tend to underestimate. And that's why teams like Montreal have never been able to beat us. And we've always had the upper hand over Portland. And it's just, it annoys the hell out of me, but I'm getting a little off track here, but
no, Connor, that's a great take. That's an excellent take, actually. And I hadn't really heard somebody, put it into words as well as you just did there. That's an outstanding point. It's really interesting. And, because you're right, LA Galaxy, they've never lost to this team, this Minnesota club. So what are they afraid about? On the road or at home or elsewhere, it doesn't matter. They've never lost. Yeah. What are they afraid of? Probably nothing.
So, guys, we go into the half up 2-0. We know that's a dangerous lead to have in soccer. And then the second half,
really above most other teams.
Yeah. And the second half, really, it was the same back and forth. But we get to the 66th minute, and that's when Ethan Finley hit a goal there with a great through pass from Fragapane. Finley was on the run up and right down the middle of the pitch. Fragapane hit him on the run. Finley just had to beat the goalie. He did. 3-0, guys. I mean, at that point, the game's over.
I was in the bathroom for that goal.
You were.
Oh no!
Yeah, you were. Connor. That's the problem.
Honestly, I'm not even mad about it sometimes, because sometimes I think, you know what? Hey, yeah, I missed the goal. I'm literally in Allianz Field to witness these kind of things, and I'm in the bathroom. But you know what? At that point to go up 3-0, I didn't even feel bad. I'm like, you know what? If I wasn't in the bathroom, he probably wouldn't have scored. I have that kind of thought.
Well,
I know at the time there was also a question on this goal of whether Ethan Finley was offside or not.
Yeah, there was a question of that, but I don't. He was not. He was not.
He was the player on the close side, at least from where the camera was. I think it was on the camera was being displayed from the same end, from the same side as you guys were sitting. I saw the photos you guys took last night.
Yep.
According to that camera, the player on the near side was keeping him on side. So I think he was on side.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with sitting on an aisle seat like Dave and I did yesterday, is that you feel like you can get up whenever you want to, because you're not like going in front of anybody. So you can just leave whenever you want to.
I knew I'd be back in about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes at the most. I didn't think I was going to miss anything. But again, like I said, I mean, just knowing that they scored, I didn't even feel bad. Already being up 2-0 when they got that third, and I could hear it. I didn't see it, but I could hear it, and I knew instantly. And you know what? I wasn't even mad. I was just happy. And the fact that once I learned that Fragapane got his second assist in this game, he's involved as he has in other games this season. It was just fantastic. And at that point, I know Tony and I were having conversations where, like, how confident do you feel? And I said, well, maybe next goal when they were up 2-0, I said, maybe next goal wins, because that could turn the tide, momentum. But once they got that third goal at that point in the game, we were resting easy. We were just enjoying, soaking it up, enjoying the game.
It was, it was a great feeling. That third goal is just the icing on the cake. And then, of course, after that, it was emptying the benches and getting guys in there. Rosales came in again. Anu got in there in the 70th minute. I know Ja'Cory Hayes came in. So we were getting guys out on the pitch. Kelman came in too. But after that third goal from Finley, it really was,
game over.
Game over. Play the game.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. So we end up, guys, with a 3-0 win against the Galaxy, a much needed win.
First ever win against LA Galaxy.
There you go.
Yeah.
So,
which actually, by the way, guys, a milestone win not only for the LA Galaxy. It was our first win against the LA Galaxy. We have now beaten every single West team.
Oh, nice. There you go.
That was the last. LA Galaxy were the last straw. We have now beaten every single team in the West, and we only have one team left to go in the MLS that we have not beaten. We are playing them later this year at Allianz Field, the Philadelphia Union.
Oh, wow.
We will be playing. Yeah.
Wow. So, guys, let's step into a quick break here. And when we come back, what I want to talk about is where we're at in the standings at this point and who we've got coming up here next and what we can do to kind of get ourselves back up in the playoff race. I mean, we are still now in the playoffs again after last night's game, but of course things change now because
for the next at least 90 minutes or so. We'll see what happens.
Well, as we're talking, Portland is currently playing LAFC, two teams that are on either side of the conference to us, and right now it's 1-1 in the 27th minute.
Yep.
So technically, if we're live standings, we might just be out of the playoffs. But we'll talk about that more when we come back.
Back. So we'll be back in just about a minute here. And we're back, everybody. after a little break. Come back. Guys, let's talk about where we're at in the standings right now. As it sits, we are in 7th place in the West, and we're sitting at 34 points. Portland is right there with us at 34 points. LAFC is right behind us at 33. San Jose is there with 30. Vancouver's 29. Dallas at 27. And Houston at 26. So, again, guys, this bottom of the
Yeah.
What happened?
We might have to restart.
In cases.
He's back. Okay.
I'm back.
That was
All right.
very confusing.
I don't know what the heck happened. Internet connection is unstable. What the frick? How can it be unstable? The internet connection should be like fantastic, but whatever.
Yeah, it's
All right.
your American Online acting up again.
Yeah.
No, we're fine. We're fine. We'll kick it in here. It doesn't matter. So, guys, where we're sitting right now is 7th in the West. We got who's playing right now, guys? Portland and
LAFC are playing right now.
Okay.
Which is interesting, because if we're talking about the standings before that game started, they sandwich us in the position, playoff positioning between 6th and 8th. So that game will very much affect how Minnesota sits as far as the playoff standings go tomorrow morning when you wake up. So, what do we have a live score, Connor? Because I think last time we talked.
It's still 1-1, and it is right now the 34th minute.
Okay,
right
so that's kind of fun because then technically because of that, I think LAFC, if that result held, LAFC would be bumped up with 34 points, and then given they would have this, if assuming it was a draw, they'd have the same number of wins. But they would probably get the nod because of goals scored, I'm assuming. And
I think it's goal
Minnesota
difference.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right, Connor. Good point. But either way, Minnesota then, if this result holds, would find themselves once again out of the playoff picture. But that doesn't matter. There's 10 games left remaining on the schedule, at least for Minnesota United. But what it does tell you is how, congested these standings are. So, we can go back and say that game 1 mattered, but there's 10 left on the schedule for Minnesota United, and they all matter. Every single match, every single point matters.
It's everything.
And so
moving forward here, guys, every game is a big game. There is no question.
If we're looking at the standings, which we are, let's talk about this. So what are your kind of maybe expectations? Like I was just before you dropped off, Tony, I was thinking, okay, so Minnesota here is struggling right on the playoff line, and they literally are struggling. Fortunately, they had the 3-0 result against LA Galaxy, helps a ton. But what should we expect? What are our expectations? I mean, to me, it almost seems like Minnesota is grouped in with about 5 teams, Salt Lake all the way down to even San Jose. I'd like to say Dallas because I don't know if I can include Dallas anymore, but certainly there's 5 or 6 teams that to me seem like they're battling for a playoff spot. Is it too optimistic at this point to think that Minnesota could still be in contention for a home playoff match?
No. After last night's game, Dave, I don't think so because we just gained 3 points on the Galaxy. Galaxy sits at 38 points. We're at 34. I mean,
and we have a game in hand over the Galaxy as well.
Exactly right. So, I mean, 4th place is not out of the realm of possibility here. But anything above that is not going to happen. So,
Colorado, Sporting KC, and Seattle are pretty well grouped up there. They're out of range of pretty much anyone.
You don't see. Okay, so maybe I should phrase it differently. Then maybe let's include LAFC, regardless of how their game goes tonight.
Oh, we losing people again?
Maybe
what the heck is going on here?
difficult because it's not like we're not just in a battle with this point. I think so. It's not just like we're looking at LA. I said LAFC, I meant LA Galaxy. We're not just in a battle with them for 4th. We're in a battle with Salt Lake and Portland and even LA.
Sorry, David. I'm going to cut you off there. Tony, we got you back there, I think.
All right, we did?
No, not at all. But you see what I'm saying. So it's not as simple as looking at LA Galaxy and saying we gained 3 points on them. It's also you got to look above in the standings, and there's 3 teams at this point, maybe 4 tomorrow, that you have to fight through these final 10 games. Either way, I think after starting 0-4, again, if you asked me before the season started, I'm really disappointed with where Minnesota sits in the standings at this point. But if you told me at 0-4, Minnesota would still be battling for a playoff spot, and even potentially, like you guys pointed out, a home playoff match, I'd be really happy.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, again, guys, it's going to come down to these last 10 games, of course. And if you guys look at who are playing in the next 10 games, I mean, really, I'll just go through the list real quick, guys. We've got Houston coming up, and then we got DC, we got Dallas, we got Colorado, we got Austin, Philadelphia, LAFC, Vancouver, SKC, and the Galaxy again. There's at least Dave. There's at least 6 games in there, I think, that we should win.
I agree.
And there's probably 4 that are going to be a challenge. You get to the end of the season, guys, and the SKC game on Halloween, guys, SKC, that's going to be a huge game. I mean,
it is.
Well, Tony, if you've got the schedule in front of you, what day is decision day in the MLS this year?
November 7th.
That would be November 7th.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're playing the Galaxy.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to that day. Now, I mean, I'm not saying that Minnesota would need a win to advance into the playoffs on that day, but I wouldn't be surprised if that day determines a lot. And I mean a lot.
Oh yeah.
And that's why that is so exciting, because all the games kick off at the same time. And I think that day is going to mean something to a lot of clubs, including Minnesota United. I hope it means the difference between, say, a home playoff match and an away playoff match, and not playoffs or no playoffs. We'll see. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But
yeah, I agree with that. There's I think you're right, Tony. I think there are 6 of these that we could realistically win. I think Houston is one of them next week. We've proven that we can beat Houston on the road, so we can beat them at home too. Of course, now Houston, I don't know if you guys have heard this, now Houston has started playing Darwin Quintero again, and he scored last night.
Oh.
And apparently now I've seen a couple people on Twitter saying now that Darwin Quintero is back, Houston's a team again. And I remember feeling like that once when he played for Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
I remember not feeling like that before he left the team.
It is funny though, because like if you're a fan, Connor, thanks for bringing that up. But I mean, if you're a fan of Houston, I mean, technically at 26 points, you get a couple wins, you string a few wins. That's what I'm saying. Even if Minnesota lost a couple, if you're Houston and you string a couple wins together, you're right there.
Yeah. You're definitely still in the conversation.
The problem with Houston is they have to also rely on every other club, kind of falling off as well. So,
right.
Tough.
But yeah, moving down the schedule here, we've got DC United in DC. DC right now is sitting in the one of the 2 Eastern Conference games we play this year. They're in 8th place in the East right now, and they actually have the same amount of points as us. So it could be a better game than you would think. Since we're going out to DC, I think that one's one game that we probably won't win. Maybe we won't lose that game. Maybe we could get a point out of that game. But it's going to be a pretty well-rounded, well-matched game, I think.
Yep.
Then you move on to FC Dallas. We're playing in Dallas again, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Luchi Gonzalez was fired today. So FC Dallas are right now without a head coach. I think that will put a big damper on Dallas' season, even more of a damper than there already is. And Minnesota, I think, will have a better chance of winning that game.
Yep.
Then you've got Colorado at home. Our only home game against Colorado, by the way, this year. I think we can win that one.
And that's actually that's a big game because it's an ESPN game. It's an actual ESPN, I think, national game.
No.
So that could be huge.
I will say this, like you're really putting it all out there, Connor, because I mean, telling you, if there's any sport, MLS is just so hard to predict, and you're just putting all your predictions out there. I think that's impressive that you're doing that. I really do, because
thank you.
What's probably going to happen is the opposite of everything you said. We'll probably win the games that you don't expect. You know what I mean, though?
Yeah, I do. I'm so knocking on wood right now, though, whenever I'm saying all these things, and just because I just don't want to jinx anything, because whenever you look into the future, it changes. So
I just love it. I just love it because, like, if you're a fan of sports betting, I used to be a big sports bettor. I'm not so much anymore, but I mean, betting on sports, it can be fun, but I'll tell you what, one league I would not bet on if I was a sports bettor or big into it is the MLS, because it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable. It's so hard. I mean, granted, props to Kansas City and Seattle this year. They've taken care of business, but aside from them, it's so hard to predict these results. It's unbelievable. Oh, and I should say, of course, New England,
Colorado's betting, up there too.
Who would have predicted? Yeah, who would have predicted New England to be leading the East this year?
Yeah.
By quite a margin too. If you look at the Eastern Conference standing, they're on 56 points. Nashville is number 2 at 41.
Mm-hmm.
That's insane.
Yeah. Kicking the shit out of
it's not quite like Leicester City winning the Premier League a few years ago, but it's surprising. And
definitely.
Most people wouldn't have predicted New England to be comfortably ahead, not only of the East, but, even potentially the Supporter Shield, which it looks like they've got a lock on it right now.
I think they've locked it up. I don't think they've officially confirmed it yet, but I think they've got it locked up. I don't think there's anybody that can catch them.
No, unlikely, very unlikely. Props to them. That's cool.
I mean, guys, what we talked about here is what's going to happen in the future. Like 10 games. Yeah, we could win all those games and get 30 freaking points. That's not going to happen. But what do you guys think? I mean, just off top of your head, how many points are the Loons going to get in the last 10 games? I mean, just think it out. Like, I'm thinking, for me, it's like, I think they're going to get about 20 points. I mean, that's my prediction. 20 points in the last 10 games. That's what I'm thinking. What do you guys think?
That's a tough one.
That's a good question. That's a good question. I'll start by saying I see this team finishing in. I'm gonna go the 6 seed, because so basically I'm saying I think they'll make the playoffs but finish 6th. I think the competition with LAFC might heat up, and there's some good teams ahead of Minnesota still. So I think to move ahead of these quality teams in the West is going to be an awfully big challenge, because even if Minnesota does well down the stretch, and I think, Tony, even if they got 20 points, I don't know that would be good enough to get up into, say, the 4th spot. I don't know that it would be. And so that's why I think I might go slightly lower. I might say something like 18 points, averaging, 6 wins, something like that.
Yeah, and I think I'm right in between you guys. I actually just went through them all and thinking what's going to happen in there. I'm saying 19 points. Because I think I'm not going to go through all the games. I think I'm going to make a bold prediction here. I think the Loons only lose one more game this year, and it's decision day at LA Galaxy.
Wow.
I think that's the only game they'll lose. I think they'll either tie or win all the rest of them.
So the real question then, Connor, I put it out there. I do not think Minnesota will be hosting a playoff game. If they do that, would that be good enough in your mind to get into that 4th spot in the West?
And if they get 19 points, that's a good question. So right now, LA Galaxy is only 5 points above them. Yeah. It might be good enough. That's really hard to say, Dave. But I think it might be good enough, depending on how the other teams do. Of course, you've got all the big giants up there, and LA Galaxy has proven that they can play with them as well. It's really hard to say, though. It's such a tough prediction to make.
Yeah. I think just because of Minnesota starting out in 0-4 hole to start the season, that they handicapped themselves there, metaphorically speaking. And I just think if they make the playoffs, they're probably feeling, they're lucky there. And so that's where I see them. I think they're on the road. They're going to be playing a team like, I don't know, it could be Colorado, it could be LA Galaxy on the road, but it's going to be tough sledding either way. But last year they proved that they could go on the road in the playoffs and win. So
yeah, that's true.
Not
Heath
out yet.
Fun fact, guys, only 2 teams in the history of the MLS have started 0-4 and made the playoffs.
Whoa, dang. And
I think it was NYCFC, and I can't remember who the other team is. And NYCFC actually started 0-5 that year.
Jeez.
and still made the playoffs. But we could be the 3rd team.
Well, that'd be exciting, guys. So a lot of stuff still happening in this season. 10 more games left. It's gonna be a sprint to the playoffs, guys. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Let's get in some soccer history from Connor here before we get out of here today.
Yeah. And I've got an interesting one here today, guys, because this is about the time during the history years that the Thunder would be playing their playoff matches in the USL A-League back in the day. So we're going to start with September 13th. And I think the last day we did it was the 12th, right? I think we did the 12th.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Sounds right.
So we're going to go. This one is the first of a 2-parter, by the way, guys. On September 13th, 2000, the Thunder lost leg 1 of the USL A-League Western Conference semifinal 3-0 at the Vancouver 86ers.
The 86ers? Wow.
The 86ers. I don't know what that's all about.
Well, that's you guys know what 86 is, right?
Oh yeah.
So when I worked in, the food industry, if you 86 something, you didn't have it on the menu anymore. So I don't know. Maybe they're 86ing their opponents. I don't understand, but
that's why I always get confused whenever why they named that Star Wars reference to Order 66. They should have made it 86.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then they could have done like execute all the Jedi. Execute Order 86.
That's right. Could have done that. Right.
Moving on to September 14th. That's going to be a couple days before we make part 2 of this. But we're going to go with 1984 when the Strikers are still playing outdoors. They lost 4-0 against the San Diego Sockers.
Oh yeah, the good old Sockers.
Yeah, we haven't heard of them for a while.
Classic.
One of the worst names in all of soccer history, the Sockers.
They just gave up.
Yeah, they
did.
They said screw it. That's it.
Yeah. September 15th, we're going to go with 2019. United win 3-1 over Real Salt Lake. I was there for that game. That was that we took control of that pretty good.
Nice.
There.
Nice.
Yeah. Here's part 2, everybody. September 16th, 2000, when the Thunder win leg 2 of the USL A-League Western Conference semifinal against the Vancouver 86ers on a golden goal in overtime.
Nice.
End up winning on aggregate 4-3.
Nice.
So imagine going 3-0 down in the first leg, winning 4-0 in the second leg, and making it over to the Western Conference Finals. And they actually ended up going to the championship game that year, but they lost to the Rochester Raging Rhinos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on to September 17th, 2011, when the Stars draw at the Tampa Bay Rowdies, 1-1. Little hi to Sterling on that one. He filled us in on some Tampa Bay Rowdy stuff coming in late.
Right.
1998, September 18, when the Thunder win leg 1 of the USISL A-League Western Conference semifinal 2-1 against the Seattle Sounders.
Nice. The Sounders. Yeah.
Yeah. Back before the Sounders were in the MLS.
Yeah, I can't. I always think that the Sounders have been in the MLS for a long time, but they really haven't. I mean,
I think they only went in 2009. I think
yeah.
What was the date on that? September 16th.
September 18th.
18th. I feel like that was pretty clse to the night of Randy Moss's coming out party in Green Bay.
It sounds about right. I think that was a little earlier September, but yeah, that was a big day. I remember that day.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the jab there, but I had to do it.
Oh well. For those who are listening right now, we just watched the Vikings kicker curse as well.
Yeah, that's still a thing. That's still a thing. Like
Vikings
20 years later.
Vikings.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah. And then today, September 19th, we're gonna go with 2010 when the Stars win 1-0 against the Vancouver Whitecaps.
Ooh, the Whitecaps again. The Whitecaps too. The Whitecaps have only been in MLS for a short amount of time too, right? I mean, they've really.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Vancouver, they've been in the league for maybe 10 years.
Yeah.
It's been a while, yeah. And the one thing I didn't know about Vancouver was they have a stadium that was at one point extremely similar to the Metrodome.
Mm-hmm.
Like that stadium was built. Now it was renovated since. Yeah. But when they originally built that Vancouver arena or stadium, whatever you want to call it, it looked almost identical to the Metrodome. And then they went through some renovations that made it look a lot better from the outside.
I hope so.
It does. And I actually have looked at it from the inside, and I haven't been to the stadium, but I've seen inside pictures of the stadium, and it actually kind of looks like a mini Wembley a little bit.
Nice.
It looks really nice. Yeah, there you have it. Your history for the day, gentlemen.
Awesome, dude.
All right. Yeah. Good. Yeah, you're right. That was a good one.
Yeah. Well, guys, again, we're happy because we beat the Galaxy.
Finally.
At least we're not talking about this team again sinking or anything like that. It would have been terrible to be talking about 3 losses in a row. But
let alone the fact that it was a pretty convincing win too.
Yeah. So we've got next game is with Houston, right? Next week.
Yep.
Okay.
At home at
Allianz
Field on Saturday night against Houston. So that's a must win for a different reason. It's not because they, need the win again. It's a different reason because if they lose to a team like Houston at home, you'd be serious. That'd be the, like I said earlier, Heath out.
I think that if you lose to Houston at home after beating the LA Galaxy, it just wipes the victory against the LA Galaxy out. It would just be stupid to lose to Houston at home.
And maybe we'll have a semi-full roster by next Saturday. Maybe some of these guys will come back.
I hope so.
Get some bench players back out here and
hopefully during training this week we'll hear a little bit more about the top 4 playing together a little bit more in training as well.
Yeah. Quick hitter. Let's our old co-host David Sterling made the point of, and I think it was an interesting one. He made the point of saying that he hopes to see Hanu start up top in number 9 position, striker, because he although he gave credit to Lude's assist on Reynoso's first goal, he tended to think that kind of Lude disappeared from that game after that point, which I guess he might be right, honestly, because Lude didn't make at least from my position in the stands, it didn't appear that he made a big impact on the game going forward. So we'll see what
it didn't
happens.
look like it.
Yeah. I mean, getting those top 4 guys on the pitch together for at least a couple games in a row would be fantastic. And hopefully they score a bunch of goals and we can stop talking about them being injured all the time. So, before we get out of here, guys, I got to say thanks to our sponsor, Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, and US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. For myself, Tony, for Dave and Connor. We'll talk to you guys in about a week.
See ya.
All right.
Check out the latest footwear innovation from Adidas, the Adizero Adios Pro 2, which features carbon fiber energy rods that are both lightweight and precisely tuned for a more anatomical transition. Everything from the ultra-light polyester upper to the resculpted midsole and the reinvented outsoles are designed for speed. Visit adidas.com to learn more today.
Addiction is a disease that impacts all of us. Whether you, your neighbor, friend, or family member is struggling, everyone feels the pain of addiction. Recovery Centers of America wants you to know that addiction treatment works and recovery is possible. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now for help for yourself or a loved one. Recovery Centers of America, Capital Region, and Bracebridge Hall have helped thousands of patients in the D.C., Maryland area start a better, healthier way of life through their evidence-based inpatient and outpatient treatment programs. The caring team of physicians and clinicians at RCA see their patients as so much more than their addiction and are deeply committed to providing expert care with heart. Recovery Centers of America knows that every day in active addiction is a day in isolation, which is why they admit new patients 24/7 year-round. Don't wait. Make the call that can change everything. Call 1-888-RECOVERY now. That's 1-888-RECOVERY.